All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome you to the third episode of the GRASAG UCC research journey. We began this journey last 2 weeks. We did the first chapter, we've done the second chapter. We will be doing the third chapter today, which is choosing a method for your research. I think the numbers are too small, so we would have to hold on for about 5 or 10 minutes for it to accumulate before the speaker starts. So please bear with me. The lessons will begin in a few minutes time. So let's hold on for a while.
Okay, good evening, everybody. We welcome you to this episode of the research journey. Last week, we discussed reviewing the literature. We made you aware of some of the benefits of reviewing your literature for your work. So today we will be moving to selection of methods or choosing a method for your research. So how best you can go about conducting your research is the agenda for the day. So as we've been doing every day, today we will tackle these areas. One, we will think of research philosophy, why we may need a research philosophy to guide our selection of methods or how we go about understanding the nature of the problem. And also we will clarify some misconception about the issue of research approach and research design, because we have realized that most of the graduate students we have don't really know the distinction between a research approach and a research design. So we will spend much time talking about these issues. Also, we will look at some of the main approaches we have in research. And then we will talk about what research designs we have and how we differentiate research designs from research approaches. And then today, because we have a lot of research design, today we will concentrate on qualitative research designs. And when we are done, when we are able to finish on time, next week we will move on to discuss quantitative research designs that exist. Now we will also tackle issues of sampling methods, how we sample for our qualitative research, and then how we determine the sample size of a qualitative inquiry. Okay. So given the fact that we have challenges differentiating research approaches and research designs, we want to use this opportunity to know the classification of research, because some people use types of research as research designs in their methodology. So we want to classify research generally. We will classify research under some broad headings. We have various types of research, and our categorization is based on what we want. Okay, we can categorize research based on the purpose of the findings, based on how data is collected, and then based on how we even analyze the data. So as you can see on your screen, we have purpose of the findings. That gives us types of research. So based on what we use the research findings for, we can have two main types of research. That is pure research and applied research. You see, you need to understand that some of the research that we conduct do not really have any practical implications or solve any societal problems. We just conduct some studies just to add up to knowledge. We conduct studies to add up to knowledge. For example, when you want to do a literary analysis of, let's say, one of the English literature books, at the end of the day, you will just generate knowledge for people to know how the dynamics of language or how authors use language within text. Such findings do not solve any problem within the society. But we have other research tools that are aimed at finding solutions to immediate problems that people encounter in their daily life. When the findings of a research study seeks to accomplish that mission, then we term that kind of research as an applied research, because at the end of the day, we apply the findings of the study for policy making, for decision making, for a lot of things to improve the society we live in. For example, we want to find the impact of COVID-19 on people's businesses. The findings we get can improve policy making, can improve the way we do things, or the way we envisage future pandemics. Okay, and how we intend to remedy some of the issues with the pandemics. Okay. And also, we can also categorize research based on the manner in which we collect data. Okay, in some research, we have to manipulate the research subjects. I'm talking about experimental research. Here, we have to apply a treatment to a specific group of people and expect a particular result. For instance, we want to determine the spending level of students and then their income level. So we may apply a treatment, we may give a lot of money to people and then monitor the extent to which they will spend within a month or a year. That is some kind of experimental research, because we are applying the treatment, we are giving them money to manipulate them to do something. That is experimental research. So the manner of collecting such data give us a form of research we call experimental research. We are manipulating the research subjects to produce unexpected results. Then we have other research that do not involve any manipulation of what research subjects. because we are just describing them. We are just describing the way they behave within the society. We are not manipulating them to respond in a particular way, okay? For instance, we are measuring people's attitude towards, let's say, technology. In this case, there is nothing like manipulating them to, bring out unexpected results. We are just going out there to seek understanding to how they perceive ICT use. That is not manipulation. So these are non-experimental research. And you need to understand that under non-experimental research, there are various forms of research that we can get. Okay, and then based on the periods, how often or the time we spend in collecting the data can give us another form of categorization of what research. Now, when we collect data at one particular point in time at once without going to the field to collect any further data, we term such research as cross-sectional studies, because the data collection happened at one point in time with no further collection of data again. Okay, but we have a lot of study based on the nature of the problem we are investigating. We may want to go there severally to observe the trends in a particular phenomenon or a problem. In that case, we will go to the field severally. So any research that demands constant or repeated data collection is always termed as longitudinal. It is longitudinal because we spend time, we go there repeatedly, collecting data from the same participants to understand the nature of the problem. So that is longitudinal research. Okay, and then based on the research approaches, what we usually, most of the graduate students we have usually use as research designs. And this has to do with the kind of data we collect and how we collect it. Now, we have quantitative research. We need to understand that it's a type of research, not a research design, because under quantitative research, we have a lot of designs. Okay, we will talk about that, but this is just to clear some misconceptions that we have. So we have quantitative research. In quantitative research, we measure, we use numerical measurement, we use numbers, we use figures, statistics to determine truth, okay, to measure truth, to measure the nature of the phenomenon we want to gain much understanding of. And we have qualitative data. This doesn't entail any numerical analysis. We are just sticking to narratives, the views of people. What they say is what we record. We don't apply any statistical measurement to this kind of research. So this is qualitative data. But there are other, depending on the nature of the problem, we can also have, we can also merge the two approaches, that is quantitative and qualitative. So in this case, we try to measure the truth using numerical data, that is numbers, statistics. And again, we supplement it with narratives or views from the people or from the research subjects. So this is mixed method. So it's a mixture of qualitative and quantitative. So these are the research approaches we have. Okay. Now, so the first slide was just to refresh our minds on the kind of research, the kinds of research we have. Now, let's move to starting our methodology. The question we ask is, or you need to ask yourself as a graduate student, that do I need a philosophy? You go to some people's or students' viva, you hear the panel asking them, so what is your philosophy? Or what is the paradigm you are using to guide your study? We will talk about this too. So what are the philosophies? Why do we need this? Research philosophy is important because you individually as a researcher, you have a way of viewing the world around you. And the research is about discovering truths. Research is about discovering knowledge or truths. Okay, so in discovering knowledge, we may have our philosophies. Okay, so as the definition goes, it is a view of how best to discover knowledge. So it is your worldview. It is how you view the discovery of knowledge. It is how you think it is the best way of discovering knowledge. So that is your philosophy. We have the different philosophies that we will discuss in the next slide. Okay, so it's a worldview. It is a view of what counts as accepted or the correct scientific knowledge. Some people may say, some people aligning themselves with a particular philosophy will say, this is the best way to discover knowledge. And a group of people also aligning themselves to another philosophy will say, no, that is not the best way to discover knowledge. This is the best way to discover knowledge. So the research philosophy is about your views, your conceptions about how best you can discover knowledge. In other words, how best you can collect data to philosophies. Apart from these three, we may have so many philosophies depending on the field we are coming from, but generally we have three main philosophies. We have the positivism, we have the interpretivism, and then the pragmatism. These are the philosophies, and each of the philosophies align themselves with a particular, somehow they align themselves to a particular form of data collection or form of data or form of knowledge discovery. We have the positivist paradigm or the positivist philosophy. What are they saying? They believe in discovering one absolute truth. They believe that knowledge is tangible. There is only one knowledge that we need to discover, and it is independent on an individual's, perception, right? For instance, let's say someone says we have the assumption that when a tree falls in the forest and there is no one around, will it make a noise or not? The positivists will say, no, definitely it will make a noise whether someone is there or not. But someone else will say, since I was not there to witness it, we cannot conclude that the fallen tree will make any noise. So the positivists believe that there is one truth, whether you like it or not, whether you are there to witness it or not, it is there. And that is why they use quantitative measures to discover that truth. They use quantitative, they collect data from a lot of people just to arrive at one specific truth. So at the end of the day, the majority carries the vote, because if the majority of is quantitative, that's statistical, if the majority are saying that this is the truth, then it is the truth. But we have the interpretivists who also hold opposite view. They say that knowledge is subjective. What I think is true might be different from yours. So what I believe is true counts. What you also believe is the truth also counts. Okay, so knowledge to the interpretivist is subjective. Okay, and that is why when you are doing, you align yourself with the interpretivist, every data you collect must be subjective. You don't sum up the entirety of the research subject and then arrive at one truth. You have to seek information from each individual. And that's why they are saying knowledge is socially constructed. You need to get the subjective views of every person, okay? It's not like you are just going out there with questionnaires, a lot of questionnaires. Some people are saying no, but because majority are saying yes, you make generalization based on that. The interpretivist doesn't like such form of knowledge discovery. So what the interpretivists are saying is that if in the quantitative research, some are saying strongly, majority are saying strongly agree, and even one person say disagree, we need to go to that person and ask him why he's saying disagree, because his view also counts. That is interpretivism. It is naturalistic. In other words, naturalistic paradigm. So qualitative believe in seeking information, information from individual subjects. Okay. So at the end of the day, qualitative data, nobody's view is looked down upon. Everybody's view counts. Okay. And we have pragmatism. They believe that in research, in the conduct of research, we don't need to align ourselves to one particular philosophy. We shouldn't say, I'm a positivist, so whatever the case be, I should investigate this phenomenon with the quantitative approach. They also say, you do not need to align yourself to the interpretivist so much, because some problems might, align themselves with one better than the other. So the pragmatists believe that in the discovery of knowledge, we choose the method that best works for us. So the best method matters the most. Okay, so you do not have to align yourself with one of the philosophies. You look at the nature of your problem, and then you decide which way to go. So mostly, the pragmatists advocate for mixing both methods. But that is not to say that the pragmatists are mixed method people. No, that is not the truth. They believe in not aligning yourself with one philosophy. They believe that you look at the problem, you study the nature of the problem, and choose the best method. So if you are conducting your research and you are viewing your research from the pragmatist point of view, you look at the nature and then decide which way to go. But the ideal method for the pragmatist is mixing both methods. That is the qualitative and quantitative. Okay. So now let's look at, having done with the research philosophies that guides our selection of methods. Let's look at what the usual mistake students have been doing: research approach and research design. Now, what is a research approach and a research design? It's when we talk of research approach, we should always think of the kind of data we collect or the forms of data we collect to help investigate the phenomenon or the problem we have identified. And that is why in the research approach, we have quantitative. So we can either look at the phenomenon from a quantitative perspective or a qualitative perspective, or a mixture of both methods. So that is research approaches. The approaches, basically, I told you that we have three approaches. That is the quantitative, qualitative, and the mixture of quantitative and qualitative, which is the mixed method approach. But you need to understand that under each of these, we have a lot of designs. Qualitative approach has its own designs, and then quantitative too has a lot of designs. And then mixed method has a lot of designs. We will talk about them. But today, as I told you earlier on, we will be focusing on the qualitative designs. Okay. So let's look at research design. Research design is very broad. Research design is more than the collection of data or what kind of data you are using for your study. It's the overall plan of the research. Because when we said research approach has to do with the forms of data you want to use to conduct the study. But research design goes a long way to determine how you even go out there and then collect that data. The sequences you pass through to collect that data are all part of the research design. They are strategies, they are the plan you draw in order to organize your research well. So the overall planning and structure of a research is the research design, which include the kind of data you want to collect, the number of times you want to go to the field to collect such data, and the sequence, and then the decision on which data to collect first, and the decision on how to analyze it, which data to analyze first and which data to analyze last. They are all part of the overall strategy and then the plan or structure of the research. These are the research design. So think of research design as broader than research approaches. You need to understand that research approaches have to do with the kinds of data we intend to collect to help answer our research problem. But the design is the overall plan we use, even how we intend to go to the field, the number of times, and which data we collect first, how we analyze it, are all parts of the research design. So we have 3 research design. We have the qualitative research designs. And I want to emphasize designs. Qualitative research design is not a design. There are a lot of designs that fall under the category of qualitative research. And then we have quantitative research designs. Designs, because this is a broader term that captures a lot of quantitative research designs, or a lot of designs that fall under quantitative research. And then we have mixed method research design. There are a lot of designs that fall under mixed method. So when writing your methodology section of the research or your study, you need to let us know the approach first, and then you come to the design you want to use. Okay, so if your research falls within the framework of quantitative research, then your approach will be quantitative approach. And then after that, you need to let us know the specific design that you are using. Okay. Now let's move on to qualitative research design, because I told you earlier on that today our focus is on qualitative research designs. Okay, so in qualitative research, traditionally, we have ethnography, that is one. We have phenomenology, we have case studies, we have historical studies, and we also have grounded theory. These are our main focus. So we expect that when you think your research is a qualitative research, or the approach you use is qualitative research, when you are stating your design, please do us a favor and select one of these. That is not to say these are the only qualitative research designs we have. There are a lot, and based on the discipline you find yourself in, you may have a lot of qualitative designs that are peculiar to your field. But generally, these are the qualitative designs that we have. So let's talk about ethnography. What is ethnography? Ethnography in anthropology has to do with culture. Okay, so in simple terms, it's a study of what? Culture. So why culture? Why ethnography as a qualitative research design? It is a research design that focuses on the study of a particular culture. Remember, culture entails a lot. So culture is not something you can study once. Culture is not something you can study using the cross-sectional method or the cross-sectional research approach. That is to go there once and then collect a few data and tell us that you have done an ethnographic research. So if you happen to be a graduate student and you state that you are using ethnographic research, then you need to be careful the number of time or the number of years you have left to conduct this particular research, because it is the study of culture, and culture entails a lot. So that's so what kind of culture are we talking about? It could be culture of anything. It could be any situation in your community. For example, you want to study the culture of weed smokers. It is something you cannot just go there and ask them a few questions and say you have studied their culture. You need to be to get yourself involved in the weed smokers so that you can get a rich understanding of their culture. Let's say a culture of drunkards. That is to say, you need to go to where drinking usually happens to study their culture, to study the culture of priests, pastors. You need to get involved with pastors so that you can study their culture. How do we do that? Okay, so ethnography takes place in a natural setting. That means you go there, you don't manipulate anything. There is zero extent of manipulation. You don't. Sometimes ethnographers even disguise themselves. They don't let people know that they are studying something because they are part of the culture. So one feature of ethnography is that you initiate yourself into the culture, you involve yourself in the activities of the culture. So if you want to study weed smokers, you need to be going with them. Probably you may want to fake the fact that you are smoking, but naturally you are not a smoker. But since you want to study them, you can only do so by getting yourself involved, initiating yourself in the activities of the weed smokers. So I remember one of my colleagues did or conducted a study on commercialization of Christianity in Ghana. So in this case, he has to go to church. He has to go to those, I don't want to mention any church to verbally. So I won't mention any. So he went to the churches. Okay, he has to worship with them for a few times just to study the environment and study the dynamics within the church. Okay, so it takes place in the natural setting. Okay. Now, we also need to understand that we have to do a direct observation of the people in their natural setting because we are studying culture. We are studying a lot of things about them. It should be participatory observation because it requires the researcher to engage in the activities of those he or she is researching. So whatever activity they are engaging in, you must be part. That is the best way of studying their culture. Why do we do so? Because we want to limit issues of lies. Because if you go to, let's assume a weed smoker and you ask him a question, probably he might not want to let you know what goes on. So he won't tell you. So the best way to do that is to get yourself engaged in such environment so that you can learn more. Okay. So we are not talking about data collection method, but you need to understand that in ethnography, well, probably interviews and those things may not be appropriate. So you go there taking field notes. So the major data collection instrument for ethnographers are field notes. Okay. So now we have another variant of ethnography, which is called auto-ethnography. That has to do with research. Are you using your personal experience because you are already part of the culture and then extend that experience to a larger cultural context? So it's more of studying yourself and how you behave within the culture and how other people behave like you within that particular culture. So auto-ethnography is one variant of ethnography, but the inquiry starts from the researcher's personal experience. So you develop the problem from your personal experience and then you begin to extend it to other cultural contexts with similar issue. Okay. Now let's go to case study. Case study. Some scholars say every research is a case study. Every research is a case study. But what makes case study distinct? The major feature of case study has to do with an investigation of a unique case, a unique issue, or an issue that is unique to an individual, that is one person. And I'm not saying case study has to do with the study of a problem with only one person. It could be an organization, an entire organization, a church, an institution, for instance, UCC. So that is a case study. But as I was saying, every research could be a case study, but a typical case study starts with a unique case, a unique issue. An issue that is peculiar to one institution, one person, or one organization. Okay. Let's assume there is an issue with one of the universities and reflect on current issues and see which university has an issue. Okay, so we have found an issue with a particular university. We are having an issue that we encountered last week because it looks as if our hacker is in again. Okay, so let's go on. So you have identified. Sorry for the inconvenience. Our hacker is in again. We will. Okay, so let's continue. We will find our way out. So if you have identified a particular issue with a particular person, you can use only one person as the case, because he's the only person experiencing the problem or the issue. That is not to say all case studies are unique to one specific organization or persons. The case or the issue might be affecting a lot of organizations. So all the organizations involved in that problem are cases. That is why we have multiple case studies and single case studies. Okay. Yes. So as the definition goes, it is an in-depth examination of an issue that is unique to an individual, group of people, institution, or organization. All right. So let's see. In case studies too, we have other forms of, other types of case studies. Okay, so at this point, I want to, check this in. You see, some of the issues we also encounter in graduate students' research method has to do with the fact that you ask them of their design, they will say exploratory design, descriptive design, and then explanatory design. Of course, with research method, there are a lot of issues. So we will discuss them as they pop up. We need to understand that all research that we have can be exploratory. All kinds of research can be exploratory. All kinds of research can be descriptive. All kinds of research can be explanatory. And that is why when you state that I'm using a descriptive design, you haven't said anything. Because we can have an exploratory case study, and we can even have an exploratory survey. We can even have a descriptive survey. We can have a descriptive case study. We can have a descriptive, mixed method, exploratory mixed method, explanatory mixed method. So every research can be explanatory, descriptive, or exploratory. But here we are talking about exploratory case study. As I told you, when the issues come up, we will discuss them briefly and continue. So these are the major forms of case studies we have. Exploratory case studies. When do we use them? We use them when there are no knowledge. There is a huge knowledge void on the issue we are exploring. Or we know that there is a problem, but we don't know the nature of the problem. So we explore. And this is also important for quantitative researchers, because sometimes you have to explore the issue before you even know the kind of questionnaire you would develop. Unless maybe you want to adapt a questionnaire from someone else. But even with that, you have to go to the field, do some exploratory checks. So exploratory case studies are more like a pilot study, because you go out there to study how things are going on within the organization or the institution you are studying. So this has to do with the fact that when there is no knowledge or no information about the issue we are trying to research, we use exploratory. We are exploring what we don't even know. But in descriptive case study, we may know the problem, but we are trying to give people or audience the description of the problem. So we are describing the nature of the issue at hand. So it has to do with the how, because the problem is there, but how is it? What is the nature of the problem? Okay, exploratory is when we don't know anything about it and we are asking what goes on. Descriptive, we are describing what goes on. And then explanatory, we are explaining why the thing happened the way it is happening. Okay, so these are the forms of case studies. But depending on the kind of research you are conducting, and also, let's also clear this. Sometimes we don't know where to categorize this form of case study. We don't know whether to classify this as a mixed method study or a case study. Because in case studies, remember we are dealing with qualitative designs. But in case studies, we can have the mixture of quantitative and qualitative. But as I told you earlier on, the key feature about case study has to do with the uniqueness of the issue. or the peculiarity of the issue. Okay, but in discovering or finding answers to the issue, we can employ both quantitative and qualitative research, and that makes it a mixed method case study. It's an emerging case study design. So someone can decide to use the mixed method case study as a research design, because in the case study, it will be using both quantitative and qualitative to provide a rich description of the case. Okay, you need to also understand that when you are conducting the case study, it should never be shallow. It should be rich. You need to employ a multiplicity of data. Okay. So apart from that, we also have other forms of case studies. And this depends on the number of cases and the subunits within the cases. Okay, so we can have a single case study. This focus on what? A critical case, an extreme case with only one person or only one organization. Okay, so when we are trying to get more in-depth knowledge about someone's experience with stigmatization after recovering from let's say COVID-19 pandemic, we use a single case study because it is a single person that is our research or our respondent. But you need to also understand that sometimes when we're dealing with organizations like a school, we are using one school. Let's say we have a school like Kwakudonko Senior, Kwakudonko LA, right? LA Primary School. That is our single case. But within that Kwakudonko LA Primary School, there are research, there are units, there are students, there are teachers, a lot of teachers within that. And we need to find answers from these units. Okay, we need to find answers from the students, from the teachers, and even the school management. Okay, so that makes it embedded because it is single, but within it, there are subunits. Okay, so there are several units of analysis. We will collect data from the students, from the teachers, from the head teachers, and from the school management, so that we can answer the problem with that particular school. That is embedded single case study. Now we can also have the multiple case design or case study design. This involves two or more organizations. The issue, the unique issue we are investigating affects a lot of organizations. So if it is more than two, or it is two or more, then we are saying this is a multiple case study. You need to also understand that at a point, we may have multiple case studies with different units, subunits within them. So let's say we are dealing with, let's assume we are dealing with corruption in banks, a lot of banks. I don't want to mention banks, so let's assume this is learning. Let's assume we are using UT Bank, Cow Bank, and Capital Bank. These three, but within each of them, there are a lot of units within them. We have bank managers, we have the cashiers, we have secretaries, we have a lot, and then we have even customers. They are all within each of the units, so it is embedded. So embedded multiple case design. Okay, so we also have another form of case study design that we can use, which is the reflexive case design. What is this? When you, as a researcher, you base on your experience within a particular context to conduct a study. That is reflexive. The problem has to do with you, and you are using yourself as a case to research. Probably you may want to extend it to other contexts too, but the problem has to do with you, right? So let's say you are a teacher and you have adopted a particular approach to teach students, and they are revolting. They don't like the way you teach them. that is a problem with yourself. So you need to use yourself as a case and then study. You are studying why students do not having issues with you because you have used a particular method as for them to teach them or to train them. So you use yourself as a case. So you go out there, you go to people's viva and people's proposal defense, and they are making a case that I use myself from my own experience. I believe this is the case, and I want to conduct. And you see a lot of people, different school of thoughts. No, that is not scientific. That is not that. You see, well, you may keep quiet, but you need to understand that you can use yourself as a case to conduct a PhD thesis. But in our part of the world, people, well, I don't want to talk so much, but you need to understand that you can use yourself as a case for a PhD thesis, because the issue has to do with you in your context. Okay. So we are done with other forms of case studies that you can use as a research design. Now, phenomenology. What is phenomenology? The moment we think about phenomenology, we have to think of an issue bothering someone. So it is a critical examination of the lived experiences of an individual concerning a particular phenomenon. Okay, and the phenomenon can be anything. It can be HIV. One's experience with HIV. One's experience with life in jail. One's experience with COVID-19 and stigmatization. You were a COVID-19 patient. You have recovered. In your community, people are stigmatizing you as if you're not even a human being. So that is the phenomenon with you, your lived experience, how you experience such stigmatization. Is a problem that researchers may want to investigate. In that issue, we call such a design phenomenology. Okay, people's lived experience concerning a particular phenomenon. It could be anything affecting a particular person or affecting a group of people. Okay. Now let's look at grounded theory. It's most often qualitative researchers, okay, let me say quantitative researchers usually start their research with theories. Well, it happens in qualitative research too. But in most qualitative research, you may not have any theory that is backing your study. And you as a researcher, you can decide to use your data to generate a theory for yourself. Okay. Now, let's see what Creswell and co are saying. They are saying that this qualitative, grounded theory is a qualitative research design in which the inquirer or the researcher generates theory out of the data. Okay, so the data is more of a data speaking for itself. Data giving you explanation to why things are happening. So you don't go out there with a theory. When you go there with a theory, you are going there with some predetermined findings. Because the theory is saying that when people behave this way, this will happen. When people eat at night, they will have hangover in the next morning. So you are going there with such a question to ask your participant that when you ate yesterday night, did you experience any hangover today? The person will say yes. And then that will confirm the theory. But in grounded theory, you don't start your research with such a conception. You just start your research, ask the questions, and people will say a lot of things. Out of the data will generate, okay, people are saying this. So it means that if this affects this, this will happen. You have generated a theory out of the data. Okay. So you see, so scholars are saying that it is usually used when there are no theories explaining the phenomenon you are studying or understudying. Okay, so it is through the data you collect that you can come up with an assumption or a theory, So they also say this kind of research does not commence with a set of assumptions or theories. You do not start with some predetermined findings that people behave this way, so this will happen. No, you don't do that. Okay, the data will speak for itself. So it's a very scientific way of generating the data, and we have methods of doing that. But in this session, we just want you to understand that grounded theory is a theory that is a kind of research, and which does not commence with predetermined, findings, or which is not backed with theory, but then the theories are rather generated from the data that you gather. So it's more of you developing your own theory out of the data. Okay. So as I said earlier on, assumptions are generated within the data you have gathered as a researcher. Okay. So let's move on. Then the last one for us is historical studies. So this has to do with, trying to answer questions or research into a phenomenon by collecting, past data and then synthesizing them, the past data, historical data, to answer a question that is of relevance or bothering the minds of people. So that is historical studies. And I'm very sure that it would usually happen within the field or the discipline of history. I'm not saying it cannot happen in other fields too, but I'm very sure that because they are more concerned about, what has happened in the olden days. Okay. Now, the last issue, then we start our questioning and answers. And we need to understand that the theory and the designs are a lot. We have a lot of designs. So in the next week, we will discuss the other forms of research design, which are mostly the quantitative research designs. So let's see, sampling for qualitative research. How do I sample in a qualitative research? And that is why I like qualitative research. The justification you give for the sampling is not that, sophisticated and very hard like the quantitative. Quantitative researchers find it very difficult to even justify the methods they used. But qualitative research is very flexible. Everything about qualitative research is flexible. Okay, so qualitative research, what are the sampling techniques? We have purposive or sometimes called the judgmental sampling. Some to choose to call it the selective sampling. Why judgmental? We are sampling a group of people that we believe that they possess a particular trait. Okay, we believe that they have the knowledge that we want to get. We believe that they hold the ideas that we are seeking for. Okay, so for instance, you want to know the history of a particular or a remote community, or let's say, because usually recently on the internet we came across some weird names of cities in Ghana. I don't want to mention them because someone will say I'm profane. We have some weird names in Ghana, and you want to discover the rationale behind such names. You as a researcher, who are you going to get that data from? If you go to a 6-year-old child, a 6-year-old child may not get the exact information for you. So in this case, you have to do a purposive. You need to judge. You need to judge and say, oh, if I go to this man, he is very old. He has been in the system for a very long time. So he possesses the ideas or the truths that I want. So we are judgmental or purposive sampling. But a lot of students just use purposive sampling. They need to justify it. Justify why you are using purposive. When you are using purposive, you are being selective, right? But in cases where all the respondents have similar characteristics, you don't use judgmental or purposive sampling because they all have the information that you want. They are equally, knowledgeable in the area, and they can all provide you with the information. So you don't use purposive. The moment you talk about purposive, then you are trying to draw our attention to the fact that the people you selected are unique out of the rest of the participants. Okay, So when they possess similar traits, you don't do purposive sampling or judgmental sampling. Okay. Another sampling technique we can talk about in qualitative research is convenient sampling. And this is the ideal sampling for me, because in qualitative research, what we don't want is forcing people to respond. You don't force a person to respond to an interview. If you force a person to respond to an interview, the dangers are that they may give you false information. So conveniently, you need to allow participants or the research subject who are willing to give you information to talk. Don't force them. So even if out of 100 participants, only 4 have agreed to give you the information, get them from the 4 of them and then leave the rest. Because the moment you force them, they will give you false information. Okay, so that is convenient sampling, selecting participants based on availability or willingness. Okay. Now another nice sampling technique in the qualitative research domain is the snowball sampling or snowballing. And I give you this, that this is a referral selection of participants. We usually use snowballing when the participant we want to get information from are very hard to come by. Probably one of them is in Kumasi and the other is in an unknown place. So the moment you identify one of the respondents, with the help of that respondent, you may identify other respondents. So let's say participant A was my first respondent. Then I asked him, boss, please, where can I get any other person who can give me this information? If the person knows it, he will refer you to other people who have the same or relevant information to share with you. That is snowball sampling. Okay, so it's more like using one respondent as a stepping stone to identify the other respondents. Okay, and then quota sampling. Quota sampling is it is a non-random selection. This is non-random, but then it has some predetermination. For instance, you want to interview. Let's say you have used an organization. Okay, the organization has subunits or structure, because within the organization we have females, we have males, we have children, we have let's say LGBTQ. They are also part of us. They are humans. Okay, so let me advocate that too. So let's say we have male, female, children, LGBTQ. They are all parts. We are not saying we should use statistical selection methods, okay, random sampling, but we want to ensure that each of them will be represented in the participant we want to gather information from. So we are making sure that women will have a quota within the sample size. Females will also have, okay, so women and female are the same. So males that will also have a representation within the sample. And then children too also have a representation within the sample. And then let's say old people will also have a representation. We want to make sure that some of the participants with unique features wouldn't be left out. So we give them a representation in the sample or in the interview or the data gathering. Okay, but as to how we select each of them is not randomized. You can just go there, you come, you are part. It is not randomized, just like unlike the quantitative people who would use random sampling to make sure that there is a fair representation. We don't use random sampling. What we need is the structure or the subunits, the unique features, and then we pick we pick from each structure or stratum, but with non-random selection. Okay. Okay, so the last issue that we are talking about, or we are ending with, is the issue of how many participants do I need for a qualitative research. Remember, I told you, or I said, that for qualitative research, everything is somewhat flexible. Okay, so in determining the qualitative sample size, we don't usually have a rule guiding it, a fixed rule like the quantitative people. Quantitative people will say when the participants are 80, you need to select, let's say 40. There should be a percentage, because at the end of the day, you make generalizations, and the generalizations you make must be a reflection of, the entire population. So the sample must be a reflection of the entire population. We don't do that in qualitative research. Okay. If that is the case, then what do we do in the qualitative research? We are saying qualitative research, we don't have rules. We don't have fixed rules. Let me say that in selecting participants. So we say you must sample as much as you can. You must sample as much as you can, given the fact that all the participants, all the people in the stratum, all the people with unique features will be captured within the study. Okay, so females are in, males are in, children are in, and then LGBTQ, they are also in. Okay, once you have done that, the number of participants you select to take part in the study is nobody's concern. But what we should make and we should ensure is that the data we collect must saturate. Okay, data saturation is what? When after several interviews, several data collection, you realize that no, the information I'm getting has already been gathered. So it means that if I keep on interviewing a lot of people, they will still be giving me the same response. So I have reached data saturation. Okay, so out of 100, you can even decide to choose 5. Out of 1,000, you can even decide to choose 8. It depends on you. And it depends on the representation or the unique features of the participants you are conducting the study on. So as to the number of study participants you want to recruit for your study, it's not a concern to anybody apart from you. But you need to make sure that there is a fair representation when you have subgroups within the population, or the population you want to conduct a study on. So let's define data saturation again. So data saturation occurs when previously gathered data are recurring. Okay, the information you have gotten already are still recurring in subsequent interviews. Okay, so that would tell you that no, as a researcher, as a qualitative researcher, if I keep on interviewing people, they will still give me the same, unless there is a person who is unique, who is different from those you have already gathered. So let's say you have entered the school and you are collecting the qualitative data. You have collected the data from Form 1 students or primary students. Okay, and then you are done. You realize that no, the information I'm getting is recurring. Okay, then you may decide, okay, let me leave them and go to senior high school, or go to JSS. Probably they may have a particular concern or a unique concern that is different from the primary students. So in that case, you may want to keep on collecting further data. So these are the issues that we are dealing with today, and we will pause our lecture here and then seek your understanding of issues and suggestion. Thank you very much for your attention.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ernest. So it's time for question and answers. So if you have any question, kindly raise up your hand and you'll be called. So we'll be taking the questions in batches. So if you have any question, please raise up your hand. Okay, so there's a question from Ayim. So Ayim, if you can hear me, kindly ask your question, please.
Okay, thank you very much, the person chairing, and thank you to our resource person for the insightful, presentation. Academia is such that even though you know something, there is always the opportunity to add on more, and this session has proven so. The previous two sessions, I couldn't be part of it because of other equally important schedules. My question, the first one, first and foremost, let me indicate that the questions, they come in series. The first one borders on the first, slide or so, first or second slide or so, the one that talks about the purposes of research, where you have these categorizations into pure and then applied research. Okay, I see that you are getting them. Maybe.
Okay.
Okay, classifications of research. Thanks so much. So where you mentioned that the purposes, the classification can be on one leg, purpose, under which we have pure and applied. My question is, are these two legs of classifications under purpose strictly exclusive to each other? In other words, is it possible practically to have a situation where research purpose is both pure and applied at the same time? That is the first question. May I go now with the second one, please?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. The second one has to do with, again, the classification you did or you presented on based on the period of data collection. I am just curious about something over here where you spoke about cross-sectional, study, and the explanation that came with it, simple terms as one-time data collection. So my curiosity has to do with, does that mean that, qualitative data can also be cross-sectional? Often we are made to believe that, a cross-sectional study must be quantitative. Can a qualitative study also be cross-sectional, given the meaning that, has been assigned to it as a one-time, data collection, study? Because my imagination is telling me somehow that in qualitative study also, you can do a one-time data collection. If I am wrong or not, I don't know. I'm willing to learn.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Then perhaps the third one, maybe I should do three and then come back again. The third one is very simple. It has to do with the distinction between, again, one of the concepts you explained, longitudinal study and then historical study. In the explanation, I find a bit, if not the same, similar. So what is the distinction, longitudinal study and then historical studies? I think I should pause here and then maybe come back again. Thanks so much.
Okay.
The resource person.
Thanks for your questions.
Right.
Okay. So we are taking another question from
Gina. Madam Gina, if you can hear me. Okay, so kindly go on with your question.
Okay, so my question is just one, concerning the
phenomenology.
Yes, the way you explained it, it appeared more like a case study where maybe the single person's experiences could be used as a research, where you were also explaining under the case study where there's a situation, a single person maybe could have experienced such and would be used as a case.
Okay.
If you could clarify that.
All right. Thank you very much. So Mr. Enes will take these two questions. So If there are still more questions, kindly raise up your hand. You'll be called. Thank you.
Okay. So, yes. Okay. So, you asked whether we can have a study that is both pure and then applied. Yes. From my perspective, the answer is yes. Why am I saying so? Because there are a lot of studies that after getting their findings, they contribute to knowledge in a particular domain. For instance, most of the studies either confirm or disconfirm a theory. There is a theory that is saying that people behave this way because they have this, okay? So on the one hand, your study have contributed to that knowledge, okay? It has helped us and gain more understanding to that theory. That is why we are saying that most of the research we conduct can either confirm or disconfirm a study. So on the one hand, you are contributing to knowledge by giving us more explanation to the credibility of a particular theory. So whether the theory holds true or not, that is one hand. And again, if your findings has practical implication in the society we live in, inform policy decisions, inform decision-making, then it is also an applied research. So one research can, perform both functions. That is why in most cases, you see people's significance of the study. They state a lot of practical implication, and at the end of the day, they also make another important contribution, that the study also contribute to the arguments or the theoretical argument of this particular author. Okay, so you have contributed to knowledge, and you have also, in a way, solved the societal problem. So that is it. Okay, for instance, we have a study like, an analysis of, feminism, or the portrayal of gender or women in a test. Okay, so at the end of the day, you generate a findings that contribute to feminist discourse. And then too, you have also gathered information on how, we behave towards females within our culture. So your recommendations can be used for policy making. Your recommendation on your feminist study can be used to, enlighten people on how to behave with women within a context. Okay, so in that case, you have, both, you have, exhausted both functions of research, that is pure and then applied. So personally, that is how I see it. So there is a form of research that can address both. Yeah. Okay. And then you also ask whether cross-sectional, a qualitative study can be cross-sectional. Yes, of course. I believe that I personally believe you may also have your own beliefs about this issue, but I believe that most of the research we do as graduate students or in the academic discourse are mostly cross-sectional. Well, you might say that I went there today. Probably you did not complete the data collection, which necessitated the need for you to visit the place again because you couldn't complete the other day. You couldn't exhaust all the research subjects. That doesn't make it a longitudinal study because you didn't finish today and you are continuing tomorrow. Longitudinal studies are very, 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 very expensive because you don't just go there. It takes a lot of time. Probably you may want to give a distance between how you visit the place. For example, you may want to visit there after every 4 months, okay, so that you may refresh things and then collect novel data, okay? So that 2-3 days of field work in a particular school doesn't make such a qualitative inquiry a longitudinal study. They are all cross-sectionals, okay? It becomes a longitudinal study if after collecting the data, you reflected on the data and found new problem. The data led you to a new issue, okay, which demands further data collection, different data collection from the same participant. Then you're doing a longitudinal study. Because after reflecting on your data is telling you that there are other issues that you need to tackle. So that is why most of qualitative studies are thought of to be longitudinal, because when you are analyzing data, the data will speak to you, which may tell you that go there and inquire more, do further investigation. In that case, you are doing a longitudinal study, okay? But for so it can be both longitudinal and cross-sectional, because after the first round of data collection, you had everything you want, and data didn't speak to you to do further investigation. So that is cross-sectional. So qualitative research can be both cross-sectional and longitudinal. Okay, but I want you to understand that when you're collecting data today and you couldn't finish today and you went there tomorrow to continue, doesn't make it a longitudinal study. It is a cross-sectional. Okay, thank you. And you also asked whether longitudinal studies and historical studies are the same. They are not the same. Historical studies have to do with trying to, review past events. That is the idea. Review past events. So that revelation you do, that, traveling into the past to understand how things went on during the past, makes it historical research. But in longitudinal research, the longitudinal as used here has to do with the number of times you visit the place, how long you were within the research context to collect data. It may not necessarily be historical data to collect current data, okay? So longitudinal studies deal with collection of current data, not past data or not historical data. So that is the difference. Thank you. And then whether phenomenology and case studies are. Okay, follow-up question, okay.
Yes, please. It's just a quick follow-up to the first question, the one that you just explained very insightfully regarding the purpose of research, where the fact that it can be both pure and applied at the same time. The quick follow-up is that classificatorily, what is that called?
Oh, okay.
Is there a name for that, please?
Well, that's one I cannot tell, but I'm not saying there is no name for it. But to the best of my knowledge, I haven't come across any classification, any term for a research that can be both applied and pure, that contributes to knowledge and solve societal problem. There may be one, okay, but I haven't come across that. Well, if you have come across such, well, you may want to add up so that we all learn.
No, I'm here to learn, so I'm just grateful for the insight.
No, we are all here
to
no, we are all here to learn. You
yeah.
have stimulated my curiosity. I would try to search and see if there is something like that.
Grateful.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. You can also do your search. Probably next week we will add up to that.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. And then phenomenology and case studies. Well, I can say that phenomenologies, they can be case studies, because we were talking about single case study where we said that a unique issue with a particular person, which is a single case. When we are doing case studies, in essence, we are trying to gain much understanding to the lived experience of that person, and that makes it a phenomenology in a way. So these two concepts can intersect at a point, but that is not to say all phenomenological research can be case studies. There are case studies that are not phenomenology, okay, because especially when the cases are many, the cases are multiple, with different group of people, different characteristics, different traits, okay, that doesn't make it a phenomenology. But a case study, a single case study can be a phenomenological study, especially when the issue has to do with a particular issue that is bordering a particular respondent or a particular research subject. Okay, so that is how best I can explain for your understanding. Phenomenology can be a single case study because at the end of the day, you are investigating an issue that is peculiar or unique to a particular person. So it can be a case study as well. Okay. Yes.
Can I come in, please?
Yeah. Christian, do you want to talk?
Yes, please. A quick
Okay.
one on the phenomenology and then the case study. Is it when you pick the phenomenology, it talks about a whole group participation, when maybe in a point we are looking at the culture of a particular group of people. So that becomes the phenomenon you are looking for. But in that same culture, you could as well be looking at a case, or when you take each individual or the whole people as a case to study the culture of those people, that is when it becomes a case study. So as when phenomenology bounds everyone together, a case study can single everyone out or group those people in the culture as individuals and study a case about them. So that's what I want to add up to the case study and phenomenology.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know if you want further clarification to the issues we have raised.
Yes, as well, the issue
I'm referring to
okay.
If you have any submission, you can put it across.
Okay, you let them ask their questions first.
Okay, there are hands up.
Okay, so Kingsley, go on your question.
Great. Thank you very much for the opportunity and the knowledge shared. Concerning the sample size for the qualitative study,
okay,
I know that it's so convenient that you can just do your own thing till you reach a saturating point.
Okay.
But I'm also tempted to believe that there's likelihood that you will not reach a saturation point. And in a situation whereby that happens, how do you survive under the said condition?
Okay, if I heard you right, you said there may be a situation where you may not reach saturation point.
Yes.
Okay.
So if such case,
so how you go about doing that? Okay.
Yeah, how do you manage it? Thank you.
Okay. Further questions? Yeah.
Okay, so we are still taking questions. If you have any questions, kindly put up your hand, please. Okay, Mr. Abutia.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
For giving me this opportunity to ask a question. In fact, the presentation, even though I didn't join early, but the part I've joined, in fact, it has really helped me and to help me in my research. My question is in relation to the qualitative research sampling method. I don't know, that's the time I just joined. Either if I got you right, we don't have a specific method in sampling, like just the convenience way of taking the people, but I have a sample size of maybe people of the same characteristics that I'm going to deal with. They are 100 or 150. And in qualitative, I'm seeing that to be so large, I can't use all of them. In that case, what do I do?
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Abu. Are there more questions, please? Okay, Mr. Moses. Mr. Moses, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, go on with your question.
I don't want to belabor the evening, but someone just spoke about culture and was referring to it as phenomenological, and I believe that should have rather been ethnography. Or if I didn't
yes. Okay.
Okay, it should have been ethnography. Sorry for
Yes,
this.
yes.
Because the issue
Okay.
was with ethnography and the other one. All right.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Mr. Moses.
Okay.
Are there more questions, please? Okay, it looks as if there are no more questions. So,
Well.
you can-
Okay. So before I answer the question relating to a situation where you don't reach data saturation, well, Christian, can you help me on this? Would it be possible that a qualitative researcher never reached saturation?
Hello.
Christian, yes. Christian.
Hello.
Yes, Christian.
Yes. Can you hear me, please?
Yeah, we are listening.
There are situations like that, and most at times, you see, when it comes to qualitative research, mostly we do a lot of literature search. So in the literature search, you will see that at any point of the design, whether you are using a phenomenology, whether you are using the ethnography or the case studies, literature suggests the number of individuals you can use for you to get up to saturation, then you can stop. So I believe that there is no way you will say you are not reaching saturation, because in one situation, there are literature that says that you can use between 2 to 25 people. Okay, so if you are doing a case study, it is possible that you use 2 to 25 people. When you exceed, 5 to 25 people. So when you exceed that 25 people, then saturation sets in. There is another literature that also says that you can use from 1 to 6 people. That is when you are studying individuals or a group. And the moment you pass the 6th person, any other response you give, you will reach your saturation. So I don't believe there is a way that you will never reach saturation, since this range of sampling sizes are given to us in research based on empirical work that have been done by these people.
Okay, thank you, Christian. I want to add up. Yes, I also believe the same, that there is no way you cannot reach saturation in qualitative research. You may have that problem only if you don't clearly define who counts within, only if you don't define your participants well. And that is what I was saying about quota sampling. Probably there are females, there are children, there are headmasters. You need to make sure that you get response from each of them. When you get adequate response from each of them, there is no way you will say you didn't reach saturation, because it is a possibility that if what teachers are saying will be the same at a point, you will get information recurring from what teachers are saying. And from the students too, there will be a point where what students are saying are recurring. And women to the same. Come again? Okay, so women too, because they have similar features, there is a possibility that what they will say will be the same as you interview, as you keep on interviewing. So data saturation is something that you cannot, you will not say you wouldn't reach as a qualitative research. At the point you will research, you will reach that theoretical saturation point. So there is no possibility that you wouldn't reach saturation. You should. And as Christian said, most scholars say from 5 to 6, you should reach, provided the people you are collecting the data from have similar characteristics. If they don't have, then you need to form stratum. You need to form various stratum so that you collect data from each of them. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Last question. Someone asked when, okay, someone asked, when you have a population which is very large, what will you do? And I think it's related to what we just discussed. When you have a population that is so large, you would definitely reach saturation. After 4, 5, 6 participants, you will get the information you want, provided they all hold the same features or the same characteristics. You will get it. So when it is large, it is 1,000, 100, after 20, 50 interviews, you should get it. But you need to be very careful. Interviewing 50 participants out of 1,000 is too much. Provided they have the same features, they have the same environment, they do the same thing. It is too much. 50. You transcribe 50, let's say the interview you conduct with each of them is 20 minutes in length. 20 minutes transcription will give you like a notebook full. It is very lengthy. So you will get the information you want from, a few participants out of an entire population. Okay.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Enes. Are there more questions? I think Mr. Jackson wants to know the difference between applied research and action research. From the chat.
Okay.
And that's Mr. Jackson. And then Mr. Wolanyo is finding out if you can throw more light on the qualitative and quantitative approach.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. If there are more questions, kindly raise up your hand, please. All right, thank you. So, Ms. Enes, you can go on with the answers.
Okay. So actually, action research is also one of the qualitative research, depending on the methods you use in collecting data in action research. Action research and applied research, they share some similarities, but action research has a particular purpose. Okay. The idea is that when you are doing any research that is applied, it could be quantitative, it could be qualitative research, but the purpose of the results determines whether it is applied or not. So we can say that action research is also one of the applied researches. Okay, it is one of the applied research because in action research, you try to, do a reflective, a continuous investigation into your own practice. For example, you are a teacher. Most often teachers use action research. They reflect on their own teaching, their own practices, identify problems that is, hindering their teaching and learning, and then try to, identify ways of solving that issue. So it is somewhat an applied research because at the end of the day, whatever results you get or whatever findings you get from the study will be used for a classroom, intervention. You apply an intervention in a classroom to solve the problem you identify, which impelled you to conduct the study. So action research can also be viewed as one of the applied research because at the end of the day, the findings are used for a specific purpose, for a practical purpose, to solve a situation within the researchers and professional practice. Okay, so we can also term action research as an applied research because the results are used for a practical purpose. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I don't know if Mr. Christian has anything to add on. Hello, Mr. Christian. Okay, it looks as if he's
hello.
So, okay, Mr. Christian, if you have anything to add on.
Yes, the issue is the historical research. So let's try and liken it to the content analysis, where all you do is to pick these contents of other works and analyze them, try to make your conclusions and come out with a finding what they are doing. So it also it's also one part of the qualitative research, that's the content analysis. So in each case, we cannot consume all of the qualitative research designs that we have. So what we employ each and every one, that the ones that are not captured in this presentation, that does not mean that they don't exist. So anytime you are reading and you come across them, you can make good use of them as well. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. Madam Esther has a question to ask. So, Madam Esther, can you hear me? Hello, Madam Esther.
Oh, me too.
Hello, Madam Esther. Thank you. The next slide is so, hello, Madam Esther. Esther is in here. Esther is your final words.
Okay. I want to believe that there are no further questions to ask. Someone has raised and saw her hand.
So, Madam Esther.
No, it's
Hello, Madam Esther.
see your hand is up there.
Okay. Okay, so I think there is a question from Mr. Aim. So Mr. Aim, go on with your question.
Okay, thank you once more, Chair. Thank you, facilitator. I was looking forward to, especially when you mentioned that this is going to be concentrating on the qualitative research. I was looking forward to perhaps you getting to the qualitative data analysis, the analysis aspect of qualitative study. Because I have a certain curiosity there which I wish to have, satisfied. It has to do with, again, often we were made to think that in analyzing qualitative data, people talk about thematic analysis, content analysis, and so on. But some people also talk about the fact that these are not approaches to analyzing qualitative data, and that's supposed to be phenomenological and other things that are mentioned. I was looking forward to having my.
Hello, Mr. Aim.
Hello.
Sorry, I went off. So if kindly you can restart the question.
Okay. I'll try to make it simple. I was saying that I was looking forward to the qualitative data analysis portion of the presentation.
Okay.
To satisfy a certain curiosity which has built up over the period, especially within the context of when analyzing qualitative data is spoken about. Others talk about thematic analysis, content analysis, and so on. But some also say when you sit in presentations and sessions that those are not approaches to analyzing qualitative, data. And they mention or suggest phenomenology and other, things that get mentioned. So I was hoping that you get to that point where I will add on to what, I already know. But unfortunately, we did not get there. I was going to ask whether in the next session you're going to talk about that, or you'll find some bit of time to talk about that before we close for today. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you much. I don't know if we should, briefly respond to. I want to put him on so that he can respond to some questions. So. Yeah, Mr. Ayim. Hello, Mr. Ayim, are you there?
Hello, Mr. Ayim.
Yeah, Mr. Ayim. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Okay.
Yes, okay. I'm here.
Yes. Yes. You said some scholars would, some scholars. I mean, I don't know the discipline you belong to. Say content analysis, thematic analysis. They are not qualitative analysis, but rather phenomenological analysis, and those are rather qualitative analysis. Is that not so? Mr. Ayim. Hello.
Hello,
Mr.
hello,
Aim.
hello, Mr.
Yes.
Presenter.
Did you hear me?
I heard you right, yes.
Well, I don't know. They say this are not qualitative analysis. Well, we need to understand that sometimes we say we that is the we identify things that are related to our objectives and to analyze our thematic analysis. It looks as if every qualitative analysis will boil down to things, but we need to understand that within the thematic approach there are specific. We have the inductive approach of analyzing thematically, and we have the deductive approach. Really, they were more concerned about these issues. And then we have analysis too, content analysis too. Another analysis called the framework analysis. They all depends on how you interpret and then report how they relate to each other within your study. But I find it very difficult to understand why they say analysis and content analysis are not qualitative approach. If you could, give us more justifications they give for not agreeing to this school of thought. Then, thematic analysis, which is an umbrella term for the inductive approach, inductive analysis approach, and the deductive analysis. All analysis is part of a qualitative analysis. So, well, I don't understand why they say these are not qualitative analysis.
Okay, so Mr. Ayim,
can you give us the justifications they give for not agreeing that these are not qualitative analysis approach?
Sincerely, it was a couple of presentation sessions I sat on when those concerns were raised, and it left me confused. And so when I got to know that we're going to be having these sessions, I was hopeful that I was going to get much education regarding this approach to data analysis. So maybe I can just, as you have said, maybe it depends on the field of study or the specific disciplinary area. So maybe that is what it is.
Yeah, okay. If I may ask, please, where do you belong to? Which discipline?
I belong to sociology and anthropology.
Sociology and anthropology. Okay, anthropology, they are more particular about that ethnography and those things. Yeah. Well, I'm also finding it very difficult.
Exactly.
Difficult to understand them. So, and that is the essence of, the academia, because, we have different school of thought. They may argue their points out, but until we get clearer, understanding as to why they say they are not qualitative analysis approach, we cannot reach any better conclusion. So probably next week we may discuss a lot, and I will do my search and see why they are saying so.
Okay. So, Mr. Ayim, I hope you've been answered now. So I think we will take our final question from Mr. Kingsley. But then there is a question in the chat box. Sergos is asking if you can give a summary of narrative research and when it is best to use it.
Narrative research.
Okay. Narrative. What's the name?
Mr. Segis.
Mr. What Segis? Okay. Narrative. Okay. Narrative research. Well, we can say narrative research is the same, is somewhat the same as historical research, because narrative research has to do with a narration of, people's experiences, which is past experience, okay? That is past experience. So narrative research is somewhat the same as research, and it deals with the narration of the past events or people's past experience, how they live in the past. Is narrative research. So it has a direct relation with
just that
it is narrative research when it is coming from a first-hand, a primary participant, that is someone saying it. But you can do a historical research without necessarily asking someone for information. You can just go into the archives and then retrieve information, and then and bring out the relationship and the issues in there. But for narrative research, most often it has to do with someone narrating, someone narrating his experiences on a problem.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ennis. So we'll take our final and last question from Kingsley Odi Sam. So, Mr. Kingsley, if you can hear me, ask your question.
Good. Thank you very much for another opportunity.
Okay.
This is a suggestion that I want to make concerning Mr. Ayim's submission of concerns. It looks as if what was presented today is humbly devoid of the data analysis component.
Okay,
so
you'll tackle that probably in the next section.
Yes, and look at it so that maybe all those issues can be addressed during those presentations. Good. And my last one is, some of us were unable to partake last week's literature review session. And thankfully, there was a recording that we can learn from. But what I observed was that the recording didn't capture the beginning of the slides. I don't know whether the slides, the presentation, because I was absent, the presentation didn't start from the beginning and started from where the recording started. The recordings really started from where we have forms of research whereby we're talking about the theoretical review and empirical review and others. So if something can be done for us, if really the presentation began with the beginning of the slides, or the slides, then maybe if we can help us, those of us who were unable to partake, so that we can get that session of recording so that we can learn from, because I personally wanted to know how to go about the systematic reviews and other things. But all that I see is about the presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we have addressed that.
We addressed that. We will get you the information you need.
It's a promise.
It's a promise.
Okay. So if there are no further issues, time is not on our part. We would want to end this session and probably continue next week. So if we have
any other issues, we can keep them for next week. Okay. So Christian, do you have any issue you want to add so that we can end the session?
Oh, no, I don't have any more issue.
Oh, okay. So next week will be, a continuation. Okay. So thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Enes and Mr. Christian. And thank you to all who participated in today's journey. Hopefully, we'll continue next week, same day, same time. So let's take notice of it. Thank you once again, and have a good night.